Today is October 23rd. We are 2 weeks away from the official beginning of the off-season. What starting pitcher do you want the Pirates to sign? We're probably going to talk about him this week. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm joined as always by my brother, Jake. What is up, Jake?
Not much, man. Not much.
A little bit of a flow mess up there.
It's funny.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
Oh, got a little chilly down here.
Oh, jeez.
Starting to warm back up a little bit.
I bet it is.
Dude, I woke up the one day, it was like 49 outside. So what the
Okay.
heck?
Well, all right. That's fair.
I moved out of that.
Yeah, that's chilly. I'll give you that.
I didn't say it got cold. So
Yeah.
it got chilly.
Yep. Okay.
And I just want to tell you, it's a little different down here. It's humid all year round. And when it drops below 60 and it's humid, it feels like it's freezing. Because it's like cold, it's like a wet cold. It's not just, it's weird.
Okay.
It's weird.
Dude, this postseason is wild. It looked like the
Yes.
championship series was just about to be straight through, and then all of a sudden, both even it back up. The Astros double down by going up a game.
Well, I mean, if the trend continues, the Rangers are going to the World Series.
Right. All the home teams have won the game on that side. On the other side, it was a little bit different there for a minute.
Yeah.
So,
All the away teams have won it.
I'm sorry. In the
Yes.
American League, all the
Yes.
away teams. In the National League, it was all the home teams until Philly got a hold of the third game in Arizona to win for the away one. Yeah, you're right. So the away teams. I knew I was going to get that wrong if we talked about it. So
even that one, like one was a walk-off. The other one was the 8th inning, right?
Oh yeah, I mean comebacks at the end. I mean, the Philly's been in charge of most of these games most of the time.
Yeah. I tell you what, I give credit to the young guys in Arizona though. They're fighting. They ain't going down without. They're not laying over. I'll say that. They went down 2-0. They easily could have just been like, well, good year, boys.
Yeah, and the thing is right. Once again, get hot, get in, see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Those sort of things. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he was like, man, I mean, I've been trying to keep up with baseball for the last couple of years, but I didn't know anyone on this Arizona team. And I said, well, that makes sense because they're all young. Like you're talking about Corbin Carroll is this year. That's it. And he's their guy. Ketel Marte's been there for a long time, but just needed some people. He's a supporting guy. Now, he can be big time when around other guys, you know what I'm saying? But he can't be a guy carrying a team.
Right. And I'm still blown away by the trade they pulled off with the Blue Jays.
Just absolutely. We talked about it on our show back when it happened, and I was like, I can't believe that this is real.
Right.
You had Gary Varsho's kid going to Toronto, and then Arizona gets two guys.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, Gurriel's a good player. But Moreno, like I thought Moreno was the guy they were never going to trade.
Yeah.
That you were going to have to get Kirk or Jansen. And no.
And he's already shown up in big ways this postseason.
Yeah, and he wasn't as good all the way through the season, right? But the good players, when the stage is big, he's going to be very good. Just because his first full season wasn't stellar. You now get to see he's the real deal, man.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why even with Davis and Endy, I was like, can we get this kid? You know what I mean? Like I was like, we
Right,
could, but I
right.
didn't think we could. So I was saying, let's go after one of the other guys instead of Hedges. I wanted to get Kirk or Jansen. You know what I'm saying? So, but Moreno's the real deal. I got receipts. I've been on this guy. Don't know if you heard that scream, but
Yep.
okay. That's fun. So, tonight we have what? Game 6. Rangers Astros.
Yeah.
We're recording this before the game, so we do not know what happened Sunday night in that one. But we've got plenty to talk about. And it doesn't have to do with the post. I mean, I guess some of it does, but in a roundabout way, right?
Yeah.
Last week was a very general baseball discussion. It was a lot of fun, too. This week is pretty Pirates-centric. We're going to talk Gold Glove, obviously, because that was announced this week, and then basically starting pitching the rest of the way, right? And in all ways possible. We're going to talk starting pitching. Before we get into the Gold Glove stuff, let's do a little house cleaning. We didn't mention this before, but I think some people would be interested to know as we get into the offseason. Chris Owings, Chase DeYoung, Dwayne Underwood Jr., at one point or another this month have all elected free agency from minor leagues, so they're gone. I mean, I don't say it like that, like I'm excited about it. But they're gone. They're gone. So, I mean, that doesn't say that they can't re-sign them to minor league deals and invite them to spring and whatever else, but for the officialness of it, they're gone for now. All right, let's get into Gold Glove stuff here because Key Brian Hayes again, and do you have a duh? You want to say duh? He's added to he's included in, is that how you say it? He's included in the finalists.
Yeah.
He's a finalist. He's in the top 3, basically.
Yeah.
For third base.
They already know who wins.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We were like, I don't exactly know because you cannot find anywhere exactly how the voting works, but I would assume the voting's already done on this. They're just telling you who finished in the top 3.
Yeah.
They're not, because there was some question about that when it comes to the guy who's not on the list. Along with Key is Ryan McMahon, who is another guy who will perennially be on this list, and then Austin Riley, which is a surprise. I didn't say Nolan Arenado. I didn't say Manny Machado. I said Austin Riley. I just had to finish it with an O. Okay. Nolan Arenado left off the ballot this year for the first time in his career. He's not going to win a Gold Glove. Now,
bittersweet.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead with that thought. Bittersweet.
It's bittersweet because, I mean, if Key wins it, if he did win the Gold Glove this year, it'd be nice for him to finish 1 and Arenado 2, just to say he officially dethroned Arenado.
Like it should have been last year?
But yes, like it should have been last year, except for now you're going to have 3 guys that are basically dethroning Arenado.
Right. Yeah, and it makes it look like, well, Arenado started to lose it a little bit. No. First off, Arenado had dead arm for part of the year. It did impact most of his game. Not only that, but you have to admit that, like, he's not, when you're losing that many games and you didn't expect to, that had to play some in it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You would think. We're all human. Key is one of the deserving finalists this year, I'll say that. 21 defensive runs saved. Best of this group, only second to Tatis Jr.'s 29 in right field this season. You talk about a guy who said, I'll go ahead and move off of shortstop, and then went out and is now like the league's best right fielder. That's ridiculous. I mean, we all knew he had the athleticism, but it's also like shortstops a lot of times are saying, no, I'm the shortstop. You can't move me off shortstop, right? We have a guy like that who is very like, don't want to move. And so I get it, but like he owned up to it, went out there and just said, I'll just do my best out here. And that's what he's done. Also, Andres Jimenez in Cleveland at second base had 23. That's the American League. So that's why I said that Key was second, but we go by leagues here. So anyway, the next third baseman on that list is Ryan McMahon at 17. He had more putouts and assists and a higher UZR than Hayes. His range above average was also higher than Key's, and it was 5.4 to 1.8. So like there's some numbers where Ryan McMahon could feel like he's there. Now Hayes has the leg up in outs above average, 17 to 11. Machado also shows up a lot on these lists, but he only played 105 games at third base this season, so I think that probably played. If you're old school, Key had the top fielding percentage, 6 errors, the least amount of qualified guys. He only had 6 errors. McMahon had double that with 12 errors. Key only had 1 fielding error this season. McMahon had 4, Riley had 7, and Key's 5 throwing errors is kind of middle of the pack. McMahon had 8. And you know what I mean? Sometimes I think that when you say like who's, throwing the ball, like anything can happen. There's times you're rushed. There's a fast runner. There's just a ball in the dirt that the first baseman doesn't scoop. There's all these things that can happen when you throw. But like if you're fielding the ball consistently, like that to me is the most impressive, because I feel like throwing errors will happen. Fielding errors will too. But like when you only have 1 fielding error at third, right, when you're getting rockets all the time. Now, maybe part of that is the fact that they call everything a hit. But even if it was, they're calling everything a hit when McMahon's playing too, and he doubled his errors, right?
Right.
Once again, everything's not about errors. It feels weird to say finally because he hasn't been in the league for 80 years or anything, but does Key Brian Hayes win his first Gold Glove this year?
I think so.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I see where McMahon has a shot, but one fielding error, and like you said, it's not everything.
Yeah, and the outs above average are there, right? The defensive runs saved are there. There's just some other numbers that favor McMahon. Just to say he does have more some things that are more, you know what I mean? So like there's a little bit of a case there for him. I think it's Keys as well. And I think it should have been last year. So, I think maybe some of the voters, because of the way that they vote, where it's Arenado every year just because it's Arenado every year, I think it's less, and we made a big deal about the hitting last year. And I think as I thought about it a little bit more, it might be less offense and more just reputation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I made the argument last year about Omar Vizquel winning in 2004 over Jack Wilson when Jack Wilson had a stellar year and Omar Vizquel basically didn't. But it was the reputation that won it for him. And it wasn't the hitting, you know what I mean? So right. Same thing here. I think maybe the reputation, and maybe Key has built a little bit of a reputation over Ryan McMahon to where if it is close, the people will just vote for Key. I don't know. But if it's going to hurt us, then we may as well take advantage of it. Side note, before we move on to basically the bulk of this conversation here today, Carlos Santana also up for first base. So nice. We'll see. I mean, your name's on that too, right?
Right.
Your name's on that too. All right, let's get into starting pitching, the big discussion today, because it's multi-layered for me. We've been talking about guys that are potential targets for the Pirates this offseason. And I think everyone that I listen to is saying starting pitching. But I want to dive into this a little bit because I've heard the names of starting pitchers that a lot of Pirate fans are talking about. And I haven't heard as much as I should have. I haven't heard Jordan Montgomery, Aaron Nola, or Sonny Gray as much as I thought I was going to. Or even Blake Snell. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, we did the stuff with the 4-1-2 double play. I tried to move my hat there for those of you on video, and I don't have a hat on today. Just realized I didn't. I got a couple over here if it starts to bug me too much. But anyway, Ed Wassel from 412 Double Play, he called out Sonny Gray. And I was like, yeah, I like it. And I've heard Jordan Montgomery more than once. You know what I'm saying? I've heard some people talk about Jordan Montgomery. I have not heard anyone talk about Aaron Nola other than myself. And I haven't even had a chance to convince people that Blake Snell is not a good idea. And maybe because Blake Snell's on his way to a Cy Young and they assume we're never going to play in that market.
Right.
And that could be fair. However, Jordan Montgomery, a guy who's kind of been traded a couple times. He was traded, from the Yankees for Harrison Bader. And I'm thinking, how much do you really love him? If the Cardinals are giving up on Harrison Bader, it felt like the Yankees were giving up on Jordan Montgomery. Montgomery was good. He got traded to the Rangers. It felt like this is a guy that maybe could have had an option or could have had a possibility to fall into your lap with him not being the best lefty out there and all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And then the postseason started. Sonny Gray had one good, one bad. Aaron Nola and Jordan Montgomery have been dealing this postseason and more than likely pitched their way out of the price range of the Pirates.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been on point. They've been on their game every time they step on a mound in this postseason. It's been good. Jordan Montgomery's fielding his position really well, too.
Yeah, good call there. Yep. Yeah, so let's spend a couple minutes on these guys here, these three guys, before we move on, because we do think, there's still a chance here of what we think can happen. Sonny Gray and Aaron Nola are going to get a qualifying offer. They'll most likely decline that offer. Who the heck cares, right? Well, under the qualifying offer rules, revenue sharing recipients, which includes the Pirates, we are recipients of revenue sharing, will lose their third highest selection in the 24 draft if they sign a player who rejected a qualifying offer. According to Ethan's tweet, who's our source on these kind of things, the Pirates will have a Comp A pick after the first round. So the Pirates, if they would design, in particular, these two guys, one of these two guys, they would lose their second round pick. Okay? We're not even going to entertain what happens if you sign the second one because we're going to be lucky enough if they sign one of them. So let's talk about those two guys first. Gray will be 34. If he accepts a 1-year deal, which is the qualifying offer is $20.5 million, I think is what they're saying. If he accepts a 1-year deal and he doesn't repeat what he just did, he's likely setting the rest of his career up for 1-year deals, maybe. You know what I mean? At that point.
Yeah.
If he's really good again, like what are you going to get? Maybe still get like a 2 to 3 year deal instead of a 3 to 4. I guess it's still available, but there is a risk involved there. I feel like Gray is probably a guy that would take less AAV in order to guarantee more money, right? So you could see him signing maybe 4 years front loaded, something like that, 24, 22, 18, 16, something like that, 34, 5, 6, and 7, somewhere around that. I could see him doing something like that. Do you do that? Is that, let's just in general, without going deep into it, and we'll keep moving here, but do you do that kind of a deal for a guy 34, 5, 6, and 7? The way that Sonny Gray is right now, is that something that you're interested in? And giving up a third round pick, which we'll talk more about that later.
Sure. And so where I'm at on Sonny Gray is he's not your, I like Sonny Gray a lot. But I don't know that I would give up a lot to get him just because like he's not a big guy. Okay. And sometimes the bigger guys don't age as well.
The bigger guys don't age as well, or do you mean the littler guys?
The littler guys don't age as well. As far as being able to throw the ball hard, which could turn around and be like a Zach Greinke as well. Zach Greinke throws the ball, he can barely break a pane of glass, but he was effective. You know what I'm saying? So he is a pitcher more than he's a thrower. Mm-hmm. So I may have just talked myself into saying, yes, maybe I would be willing to sign a guy like Sonny Gray.
I mean, I feel like he's only struggled in New York.
Yeah.
The fact that he was good in Oakland, he did well in Cincinnati to kind of bounce back from what happened in New York. And then now here in Minnesota, 308 and 279 in the last two in the last 2 years. Like, he's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like he's found whatever's working. Dude has in Oakland in 5 years he had a 3.42 ERA. Went to New York for 2 years, 4.51. Cincinnati 3.49, and in Minnesota in the last 2 years a combined 2.90 ERA. Like, yeah, heck yeah, I'm going there. He's obviously figured something out, and he's done that at age 32 and 33. So it's not like he did that at like 29 and 30 or 30 and 31, and then you're wondering if there's a decline. I feel like he's in a good spot to go now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to be that. So, man, I don't know.
It's like I said, I talked myself into a circle there.
Yeah. So Aaron Nola will be 31. So, that's a 3-year difference, obviously. He'd be better set to bet on himself. That's kind of a hard way to say that. Better set to bet. I don't know why I chose that. Anyway, he could probably raise his stock. He's only been in one organization, and that's Philadelphia. He loves it there. They're awesome. He could accept $20.5 million and then say, I'll go at 32. I'll go to free agency. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could see him doing that, especially thinking that they're going to be primed to go right back to the World Series next year, or the postseason. I'm sorry. But man, his stock has been raised. He's been nails. There's a good chance he's going to decline that because of what he's done in the postseason. You're talking about a guy who last year was looking for what? I think it was 8 years, $200 million for an extension. So 7 years, 175. He's still there. Yeah. And at this point, I don't know why he doesn't get it as his last contract. Like, where is he going to finish it out? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And maybe he gets that right in Philly. Without this postseason here, you could make a case that you could probably get him for 120. But now, I don't think so now. This was kind of the big signing. Aaron Nola, for me, that was the big one for me. I thought, that's the guy I want. Mm-hmm. Is it even possible anymore? And would you even touch it?
Is it possible? I mean, anything's possible, but
in Pittsburgh?
Touche. No, I mean, he's going to be out of your price range. And even if you were to try to do it, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot as an organization with a small market team.
Sure. All right. So moving on to Jordan Montgomery, also 31. But where his career has been, I think you could have gotten him for around maybe 5 years, $100 million prior to the offseason. No qualifying offer attached to it, so you're not going to lose any draft pick. He played for 2 different teams. That negates the qualifying offer. He's not qualified for it or eligible for it. However, I read an article stating that Montgomery has pitched himself out of the Cardinals' price range. So I'm not sure now how the Pirates can ever play and what will be an intense hot stove bidding on this guy.
Right.
Muted, sorry. I'm not sure. I'm not the only person who would rather have Montgomery than Blake Snell at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing escalate up around the same range as Nola at this point. I keep saying at this point, but that's because prior to the postseason, I didn't think this.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But I think I think it's Aaron Nola that changes the game on all this, right? Because Aaron Nola was not great this season. And then now look, if you know you have it in you, I'd bet on that. So Aaron Nola, for me, like, I don't care. When the postseason comes along, I want to ride with you. And I think now that Jordan Montgomery's doing what he's doing in the postseason, I think you could say, like, yeah, I'll risk that because I know when it gets to this time, he's going to be my guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Same thing though. Same. You basically already answered this question. But this is a guy that the Yankees are going to be interested in. They drafted him. You know what I'm saying? He was there for a long time. They're going to be interested in him. The Dodgers would love to be interested in him. I'm sure they will be. Yeah. So no. The question with these kind of three guys, would it be satisfactory at least to say that MLB Trade Rumors has an article saying the Pirates are one of the teams that are inquiring? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just hearing / seeing the Pirates name attached to some of these guys is going to be a glimmer of hope. Like, okay, they're actually, you get outbid. That's that.
Yeah. You get outbid. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit of satisfaction in at least seeing or hearing the name.
One step further on that, though, is that an expectation? Are you let down if they don't?
With these three, I would be let down if they're not involved with one of them.
And that's fair. But
I wouldn't even
think
say
if you're
checking
involved,
in on all three, but I think if you can get involved in one of the three, at least you checked in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to show, like, yes, we were there, we had a number, and they went beyond that number. And I think if that's the case, dude, that's lip service, man. You could fake that.
Yeah.
I think you at least need to fake that. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like we could say like, well, we had a number, and they quickly got beyond that number and we decided to go another route. And to me, that has to happen. If nothing else, Jordan Montgomery, if you're going to say the qualifying offer thing turns us away, we've made the decision not to do that. So we looked into Jordan Montgomery. Like there has to be something. Yeah. You owe it. I mean, I don't want to use it. I don't even use as words. We need starting pitching. So we got to keep moving here. I know I got so much stuff here that I want to go over, and I'm taking a look at this time and I'm seeing where we're at. And I want to keep going here, but just for the sake of it, let's keep moving because there are other starting pitching targets. And while I was holding the Pirates to a higher standard for this offseason because I thought that the window was going to begin to open, it's showing us that they've escalated this thing to a higher number, right? Mm-hmm. I think so. Sonny Gray might be the only guy of those that's kind of like if that kind of 4-year deal thing would be available, then maybe. But you're giving up a second round pick for it. So that needs to be a decision you're willing to make. But there are other guys out there, right? And whether you want them to sign Sonny Gray or one of these other two guys or not, there needs to be another one. And we'll talk about our current options here and why that's the case. But there's some free agents out there, starting with Lucas Giolito. Kyle Gibson, Jack Flaherty, Michael Lorenzen, James Paxton, Zach Davies, Vince Velasquez, Dallas Keuchel, Luis Severino. Those are all guys who are kind of out there, and you're saying like, hey, how many of these guys? You mentioned a couple weeks ago Jack Flaherty, which I think is a great call out. I think that's if you can go in and get him on, there was a lot of deals signed this way last year where it's like it's a 2-year deal, but you get an opt-out after the first year. I feel like that's one of those things you go to. Let's do 12 and a half, 13 million, 2-year deal. Maybe not Jack Flaherty that high, but give me like a $8 to $10 million range for a guy like Flaherty or Lorenzen, something like that. You can opt out after the first season, or else you have, I think, Andrew Haney, there was just an article today. He had a vesting option, basically. He could opt out after the first year, but it was his call. It was a player option. And if he got to I think it was like if he got to 150 innings, that player option went to 20 million. And if he stayed under 150 innings, it was at 13 million. He had 147 innings. something like that. So he just missed, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's at 13 million. And so now he's got a decision to make where if he would have just got to 150 innings, it would have been a no-brainer he'd have stuck around.
Right.
And so like there's things like that you can do, right? You can give them a player option and it increases if they do something, right? If they get to a certain number. And if they do, then you're willing to go another year for them. Otherwise, you're still willing to go another year, but it's the maybe the same rate as this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something like that for Jack Flaherty would probably be a really good idea. Try to see what you can get from him. Put him down in the 4 slot in the rotation and let's go. You know what I'm saying? That's assuming that you can get somebody to go to that 2 spot or 1 spot, depending on how you feel about any of these guys coming in here with Mitch Keller and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But how about Lucas Giolito?
Here's my thing with Lucas Giolito, and I think it'd be important, and I think it's something that the Pirates should consider is getting Giolito and Flaherty. They played together in high school. They're friends.
Didn't know this.
Oh, you didn't know about that?
I didn't know that.
Giolito, Flaherty, and Max Fried in the same high school.
Are you serious?
Yes. They won California state title.
Well, no kidding. Nobody else
like,
got a hit in California.
but bringing those 2 guys in, you might get the best out of both of them just partly because they're there together. You know,
Played with 3 teams in 2023. The White Sox, where he had 21 starts and a 379. Like, it was good. And that's coming off of a 490 last year where it was kind of like, oh, geez, we should have really traded him. But then just not good in 6 starts with the Angels and the Guardians, 689 with the Angels, 704 with the Guardians. Just wasn't making it happen. And I don't know what it's going to take. He obviously lost something there. But he kind of bounced back there with the White Sox this year. And it does kind of, I mean, he's had so many, like those 3 years before that were great years. I mean, one of those is a 2020 season, but he's still, like the ERA was still low. But the other 2 seasons, over 200 strikeouts. He did have over 200 strikeouts this year too. So I think that Giolito is a guy that there's going to be a lot of teams in. He's like the only guy that's on that fringe. He's not one of those top 4 guys. Or 5 guys if you want to talk about Shohei, or 6 or 7 if you want to talk about the 2 guys from Japan. You know what I'm saying? So like wherever they land, I don't know. But he's kind of in that realm that I think if you're afraid of those other guys, I think you go hard for Giolito. And you do like a 4 or 5. How old is he? I got it here. He'll be 29. This was age 28, so it'll be his age 29 season. I think you go hard for 5 years. Throw 100 million at him, 20 million a year, like for real, right? Now you can move that around however you want, but then throw an opt out after 3 or something like that. Or maybe a mutual option to pick up the last 2 years. I
personally like Giolito. I like Giolito a lot, and I would love to see him in a Pirates uniform. But I think pulling a Jack Flaherty as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously we're getting more than we need more
right.
than one.
You need to have 2 of these guys.
And I think pairing those 2 together, I think Giolito is my big guy, and then say, hey Flaherty, why don't you come over here back with Giolito?
Yeah, sign one of them first and use the other one. Right. You know what I mean? And I thought with Sonny Gray, Vanderbilt guy, we've got DeLay and Reynolds, Vanderbilt guys, so you could play that too, but we don't need to go there. So free agent versus trade. Do we actually have guys that we're willing to trade? Do we actually have guys that teams want?
Well, those are 2 totally different questions.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those answers are yes. You have to be willing to trade from some of your surplus in order to make the Major League Club better.
Yeah.
You just can't, we talked about this beforehand. You just can't touch the top 5.
Yeah, I think and let's be clear about it. That's not just a rule of thumb, but it is specifically who is in the top 5.
Right.
And that's Paul
So it's
Skeens, obviously.
mhm.
But
Termar.
for me, it's Termar, Jared Jones, Solomito, and Bubba Chandler. Those are the ones right now that I think, no, we need to make sure we keep these guys. Now, the number 6, Thomas Harrington, is no slouch. He's very good. He's been very good. Maybe you could part with Solomito or Chandler, but I don't think so. Harrington's 22. The other guys are 21 and 20 right now. So they're a little bit younger. So I guess you could say, like, if you go with the youngest guy, which is Solomito, if you go with the youngest guy, you could probably get yourself into that a little bit more. Then again, Pirates have trouble with left-handers. So, unless you're getting a lefty, like, we need to have more left-handed pitchers here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, Harrington would be a guy, yes. I think he's going to be very good, but he's a guy that I would probably be willing to part with as kind of the big piece, but also I would throw one of these guys, one of these second basemen, maybe, you're talking, especially now with Triolo the way he is, I'd get rid of Peguero or Gonzalez. G1 Bay for sure, but that's another story. But like Lonnie White Jr., those kind of guys, like,
I look at a guy like Palacios. People are going to like what they saw from him.
I think if you're making a trade with a team, you know what, I said this, so why not say this, right? A guy like Dylan Cease, the White Sox could be in a position to blow it up. And if they are, what if you could go after a guy like Dylan Cease and say, and build a big package? Harrington, Peguero, or Gonzalez, one of those guys, right? Palacios, just to have another, because they're going to probably be dealing other guys too. But then, get creative. Maybe there's somebody else. Maybe you go for, another pitcher, or, another, who else did I say when we were talking about this? Well, Andrew Vaughn would be a guy you'd be getting in the deal, but like Lonnie White Jr., throw him in the package, big time lefty prospect, any of those kind of guys, maybe one of your international guys who are, even further away, but like really loaded up 4 or 5 players. And maybe that's something if they're rebuilding. Harrington's got to be good enough for him though. But if you're getting Cease and Andrew Vaughn, shoot, maybe you do go Bubba or Solomito. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you do go that high. And then keep Harrington and hope for the best there. Maybe you throw another arm in there, or maybe another, it's possible if you can get a guy like that. I don't know that's possible. And to be honest with you, I don't even know when Dylan Cease is going to be a free agent. That might change it. But like, this is an example. I'm not saying go after Dylan Cease. So he won't be a free agent until 2026. So you'd have him for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like 2 years of Dylan Cease, that's really great. Obviously, coming off a down year, they need to redo things. But just in 2022, he had a 2.20 ERA. He's going to pitch innings, which is very important for us. He was runner-up in the Cy Young last year. Maybe that's a guy that's available. You know what I'm saying? And then Andrew Vaughn comes in, fixes first base for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something like that to be said. You could do something like that. You'd be willing to go a little harder on it. But either way, there is something there. You could trade away guys to go for that. So who's in the rotation discussion right now, Jake? Really, we got about 5 minutes on this. Let's talk about who's there now. And I'm going to read some names and you tell me which of these guys are falling in and where and why we are saying we need to. Mitch Keller, Johan Oviedo, Roansy Contreras, Luis Ortiz, Osvaldo Bido, Bailey Falter, Andre Jackson, Max Kranick, Quinn Priester. I said him really late. Who's those guys? If you were to build a 5 right there, who are you building?
Just out of that right there?
Out of that right there.
Keller, Oviedo, 1 and 2. Then I would be at Ortiz at 3. Priester and Roansy or Roanzi and Priester.
I don't care what order they're in.
Yeah.
So
sure.
those are your
Okay.
5. That's probably have to be my 5 as well. Or maybe if you go 6, you could do something with Andre Jackson. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't care if he makes it through the offseason on the roster.
Right.
I see value there, but I'm kind of hoping that there's so many upgrades that guys like that are forced out.
Sure.
So why then? Do you believe that Priester and Ortiz right now are ready to go?
Right this second? No.
You'd much rather have 2 different people there.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, Roanzi Contreras, he does not have any options left. So it's him or I don't know. It's bullpen for him. That's where you're at. Or you're putting him in the trade for Dylan Cease.
Right.
Just to say you try to fix him. We're not. If they're rebuilding,
it really wouldn't surprise me if he gets traded this offseason. If he's a thrown-in player.
It also wouldn't surprise me to see him bounce back.
No,
he has the stuff. He had a bad year.
Mm-hmm.
Get some rest. Maybe, maybe something works out there.
Hit the reset button. But, I mean, if we're making moves, and we're making it to make the starting pitching better, we'll probably just be like, somebody else can deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look, you're right. And the way I look at it, Andre Jackson, maybe a bullpen guy or gone. Potential to be like a long man spot starter if he sticks. Possibly the same with somebody like Falter. I don't really know. Milo just come running in here to get a toy and run back out. And Keely's outside going, "What are you doing?" I wish he would have said something. Anyway, I mean, just think about Beto, Falter, Kranick, Priester in AAA. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Jared Jones is down there too. When you talk about depth and you have those kind of guys in AAA right now, and then AA has, Skeens, Chandler, Solomito, Jackson Wolf, someone else. You know what I'm saying? Like,
have you even said Harrington yet?
Well, Harrington's was in high A. He might be looking at AA right now. You've got Braxton Ashcraft, who could possibly be in the mix in AAA. He could possibly be there in AA somewhere. Like, there's literally good pitchers. You got Burrows and Brubaker coming back from injuries. All of these things create depth. But the only way that depth feels that good is if those guys are not in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And you've got, and like I said, even with a guy like Flaherty, if he pitches half the year and it's not working out, you move on and your depth comes into play. If any of these guys get injured, the depth comes into play. Without doing that, you're going out and you're signing some of these guys on minor league deals to build depth. And it's like, gosh, that's not what we had in mind.
Right.
And I just want to say, like, I expect to be better. All right, so let's move into this now, because there's more to this. We're still rolling here.
There's more.
But wait, there's more.
We just got Katie to buy.
There is so much. There's so much going on right now with pitching that it's kind of a hold the phone moment for what you're thinking about the Pirates and what they need to do and what echelon you want them to play in. So much has been said lately about the crazy amount of Tommy John surgery that are occurring ever since COVID. Is it COVID? Is it the pitch clock? What is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on here? Is it just the fact that these guys are going and pumping 100 and reshaping pitches and doing max effort in December? You know what I'm saying? I heard somebody say recently, there's no feel anymore. They're not feeling the ball. They're just going out and doing it. And, your max effort, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to work out in the off season, get a feel for a new pitch. No. It's literally like you don't get a feel, you get data. And let's see if it's got the right RPMs and movement. Oh, that's going horizontal. I'd really like that to do more vertical. Okay, let's work on that. And it doesn't matter what it feels like. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that has something to do with it.
It's a valid point.
So are we sure, and this is the question that we're going to we're going to go down this path now. Are we sure that we even want to invest in starting pitching? And which sounds crazy, right? But hear me out. And I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying we shouldn't. Let's clarify up front. This is an exercise to see what we're doing and does it change how far you go in certain areas. We've already talked about the injuries. That was all I needed to say. And we're all like, dang, yeah, you're right. And other people have been talking about it as well. If this postseason has taught us anything, it is either stick to your narrative or you can talk about the other half of the truth, which is call it how you see it. There's a narrative out there saying starting pitching wins in the postseason, right? So if that's your narrative, then roll with it. That's fine. Here's what I see going into tonight, Sunday night. Let me clarify. Sunday night. Starting pitchers are 22 and 25 with a 4.39 ERA in 291. It says 0.3, so and a third innings pitched. 1.328 whip. Not great. It's not terrible, but not great.
Right.
9.2 hits per 9 innings. And the walks and strikeouts look pretty good. 1.7, 9.1 per 9. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But the hits aren't. And obviously the home runs. But you're talking 47 decisions in 62 games, which actually got better because Saturday, Wheeler and Gallen both got a decision. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of these numbers that I can tell you, like those numbers that I just read off, got better Saturday night. It was worse than that when I started looking this stuff up. Let's talk a wild card series. Marlins went into the postseason blah, 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 without last year's Cy Young winner who had a down year and was hurt. And their only pitcher with 200 strikeouts, which was Jesus Luzardo, couldn't even throw 5 innings and got hit for 3 runs in 4 innings. Their number 3, Braxton Garrett, gives up 2 runs in 3 innings and they move on. Yuri Perez didn't even get a chance to pitch. The Phillies obviously getting great pitching from Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez. They sweep the series. Arizona sweeps the Brewers. Zach Gallen pitched great in one game. And game 1 is how I meant to say that. Brandon Pfaadt couldn't get out of the 3rd inning, but has been better since. Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta combined for 9 innings pitched and 8 earned runs. And those guys each in the regular season had 200 strikeouts and sub-4 ERAs. Oh, but they stunk. Okay. The Twins got great pitching from Sonny Gray and Pablo Sanchez swept the series. Pablo Lopez. Excelente.
Excelente. Señor Pelota.
The Blue Jays got 7 total innings pitched between Barrios and Gausman. Granted, Barrios was taken out too early, and we know that, but that's part of it. They took him out after 3 innings and only 1 earned run. 3 innings they allowed their great pitcher, who's facing his old team, they only let him go 3 innings. Great investment, by the way. Great investment. That counts. That's part of the whole thing. Gausman went 4 innings, gave up 3 runs, only 4 innings. And he had a 3.16 ERA in the regular season with 237 strikeouts. Him and Barrios over 30 starts. Barrios had a 3.65, by the way. Rangers, Montgomery, Evalde, Thielen, obviously, so good. 330, 363 in the regular season for those 2 guys. Tampa Bay got 5 innings from Glasnow and Zach Eflin each. They gave up 3 and 5 runs, respectively. 350 and 353 ERAs in the regular season. Good pitchers. Gallen, 5 and a third, 2 runs. Merrill Kelly, this is division series. Merrill Kelly, 6 and a third, scoreless. And Brandon Pfaadt made it to 4.1 innings scoreless. Probably taken out a little bit early, but also maybe just them saying like, hey, let's not leave him in too long. He had a 5-something ERA this year, right? Yeah. And he's a rookie. I mean, so is Gallen, but he's nasty. But it's just like, okay, so that's good, but they swept. The Dodgers, Kershaw got 1 out and gave up 6 runs. Lance Lynn couldn't get out of the 3rd inning. Bobby Miller didn't get out of the 2nd inning. Oh, and Kershaw's worth $20 million and Lance Lynn worth 18.5. Invest in your pitching so that they can pitch a total of 3 innings. All right, we've gone over the Phillies. How about the Braves? Spencer Strider started 2 games, 7 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, outmatched by Suarez. Then 5 2/3, 3 runs, 7, and lost to Suarez again. So you have a guy who's like, oh, that's pretty good. And this is one that you could say, yeah, but starting pitcher for Suarez was better. Yeah, but in the regular season, Strider was way better than Suarez.
Yeah.
I'm getting somewhere here. Bryce Elder got rocked. Max Fried, 4 innings is all you got. He had a 2.55 ERA in the regular season. He pitched 4 innings. Bailey Ober gave up 6 runs in 4 1/3. He had a 3.43 in the regular season for the Twins when he pitched. Joe Ryan was used as an opener, giving up a run in 2 innings. He did start 29 games, albeit with a 4.51, but he started 29 games for him this year. And they just used him for 2 innings. Astros got good starts from Javier and Verlander. Jose Urquidy, who went 5 2/3, giving up 2 runs, so whatever. But like, Astros are kind of getting some good outings from guys who had higher ERAs. 4.56 for Javier, 5.29 for Urquidy, 3.22 for Verlander, something like that. One of those things are right. But Framber, who had a 3.45 this season, gave up 5 runs in 4 1/3. Okay, I mean, I could keep going here, man. There's a lot of them. Dean Kramer, 32 starts, 4.12 ERA for the Orioles, only lasted an inning and 2/3 and gave up 6 runs. Grayson Rodriguez, 4.35, but he's a good pitcher. Everybody liked what they saw in the second half there. 5 earned runs and 1 2/3. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're talking a lot of guys who were actually good pitchers. Championship Series, Zach Gallen giving up 9 runs in 11 innings so far, after even being lights out in the ones before that. Kelly's been bad. Verlander, 4 runs in the second game he pitched. Urquidy and Framber struggled. Scherzer, 5 runs in 4 innings.
So I think I'm going to cut you off a little bit.
No, I want you to right now, because I'm going to keep going if you don't.
Right. And I think what we're seeing the trend in, first off, the narrative that starting pitching wins championships, I've always left starting out of it. I always say pitching wins championships.
Okay.
But just a lot of the guys you named are one of 2 things. Granted, there's always exceptions to these, but young and old. You got some of the older guys that are struggling, end of the season, worn down, they're running out of gas. Some of the younger guys, what is all of this? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you got the guys who are like ho hum through the regular season, and they're like, playoffs, baby, let's go. We've been here, we've done this. Jose Urquidy. I've been in the postseason. I get what it's about. I go through the regular season. We get into the playoffs. Not to say he's not trying during the regular season,
right?
But he's able to lock it in when it gets to the postseason.
So case in point, I'll let you keep going. Case in point, Aaron Nola, 4.46 ERA this year.
Locked it in the playoffs. He's been there. He's done this. He finds that and he goes there. So I think when we ask the question, why invest in pitching, or should we invest? You should invest in the right pitching. It's some of these guys we haven't. I say baseball hasn't invested in yet. Some of these young guys not invested in him yet.
Yeah.
Is he going to be one of my guys going for a while? Yes. Do I think he's going to be a guy I'm going to invest in? Yes.
The question is, though,
so
if starting pitching is as much of a crapshoot as anything else in baseball, which is not what people say, right? They don't say that. They say starting pitching wins, period. I mean, we all know Clayton Kershaw is one of the greatest left-handed pitchers to ever play.
Mm-hmm.
And his postseason is up and down. There's been more good than bad, but the bad ones you never forget because they're really bad, like the one this year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of mileage on Clayton Kershaw. I get that. But like even Zach Gallen, who's young, 200 innings, 220 strikeouts this year, 347, and it's been a mixed bag. And then you get a guy like Brandon Pfaadt who had one bad game, 5.72 ERA. This is another young guy who just shows up. You know what I mean? But there's just guys who struggle in the regular season. They're guys that can grind and get you have a good season. And then you get to the postseason, what are you? Guys like Aaron Nola who, no matter what happens during the regular season, I got you. I got that dog in me, you know? And so like there are guys like that. But sometimes you don't know who those guys are. And even if you do, Justin Verlander, who's obviously at the age thing, but if you're investing in some of these guys, you might be talking about at a later age. I mean, we just talked about that with Sonny Gray. Like, how often do you do that? You know what I mean? Or how long do you do that, rather? And so it's just kind of thing. Like Nathan Eovaldi's a good example, too. He's been great. He's never been an amazing regular season pitcher, but he's always stepped up big as far as what our memories think. Like, you know, that game that he came in and just went forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was incredible. And it's just like, the question isn't whether we've already invested in the players who are out there right now, but the question is, if it is so wishy-washy, are you a little bit afraid of saying, let's put all our chips in starting pitching? Let's go out and spend $175 million that we don't have, when you're talking about the Pirates, and saying, let's get this guy, and it has to work. If it doesn't, we're not going to be good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's one of the questions. Or, as we move on to this and maybe set up things for next week, or do you go after some of those guys who could come in and be good and hope that they show up when it counts and depend on guys like Mitch Keller and Oviedo to even take another step or whatever, and invest your money into the offense and say, well, if we can't, because here's the other thing. If these starting pitchers can get you 4 innings, I mean, most of these guys are. You're winning in the postseason. This goes what you said about pitching, not necessarily starting pitching. If you've got a good bullpen and you can throw these guys for 3 or 4 innings and then another guy for 2 or 3 innings and then get to your bullpen, like maybe you are set up for the postseason if your offense is there. So then do you change that money that you thinking no matter what has to go to starting pitching and say, no, let's invest in this offense, starting with first base and another outfielder? You know what I'm saying? Maybe maybe you go get a second baseman, depending on who's out there and who's available, and then deal from your second base surplus, right? Maybe there's something there that you do, but that's the next question, right? That's the question of, if we can't play here, we still have to play on the offensive side. We've got to go out in free agency or trades, even in trades, you can bring in salary. You know what I mean? A guy with more salary. But you got guys out there, you know what I mean? And I don't want to name any names, just because next week we're going to talk about that. We're going to go down that path of the hitters that we could sign. And we'll do both scenarios since we had this conversation this week. We'll do a scenario where you say, okay, assuming we went out and got starting pitching, what are our options? Assuming we couldn't get starting pitching, what are our options and how much more are we willing to do? And then also, which one's your priority? Because sometimes it's a test of time. Guys might be gone by the time you make that call.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, man. It's really interesting. And the one thing that I think you and I both are kind of frustrated with and we wanted to bring up is I don't want to just name a bunch of names that are doable for the Pirates. This is a different year. They're supposed to compete. I expect them to act like it. And I think one of those things is if you miss out on guys, that's one thing, but you better be involved.
Right.
You better be talking. You better have a number in mind for all three of those pitchers. Hey, I don't want to lose that second round pick, so maybe I won't go quite as far with Sonny Gray if he eclipsed this. But for Jordan Montgomery, I'll go about $30 million more. Or I'll go about 2 years more because I don't have to lose a pick and he's younger. Right. And so like if you have a number and they blow it up and you're out, that's one thing. But tell me that you were involved and that you were talking to them.
Right.
Get on the phone with their agent. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing. I expect that to happen, not because I expect them to sign them, but because I want you putting forth the effort. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
And who knows? Maybe there is a point where you decide, and the front office decides that it's worth the money in this place or another, depending on the way that they're evaluating players. So it's time to win, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or is it not? Because settling for lesser players, it's not what I expected going into year 5 of a rebuild.
Sherrington will let us know if it's time to win or not.
Yeah, no matter what he says. Right. What he does and what he tries to do, even if he comes up short. Like I said, if there are bigger markets that outprice him, that's fine. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to overpay for somebody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't afford to overpay. I do believe that. Mm-hmm. Especially if it doesn't go well. And that's why there's a lot of risk. Guys, leave us comments on the YouTube, messages on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. Let us know who your starting pitcher is. Let us know the path you want to go down, maybe with investing in starting pitching versus position players. And then let us know position players that you want. And maybe we'll read a couple on next week's show so we can dive into that next week and talk about maybe what we think first base is going to look like, and then any of the other positions that we may get into in our conversation or in our prep this week where we think we might move into, but specifically first base, right? I mean, we know that's a need.
Yeah.
So, you got anything else in closing, Jake?
Oh man, I think we've covered everything for today.
Who you got going to the World Series? The same? I think we both had Phillies, and then you had Astros, and I had Rangers. You feel pretty good right now. You're in good shape.
Yeah, but I still like to see. I'd like to see the Rangers get there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think I even said that. I think I was rooting for the Rangers, but I think the Astros will go.
Yep, that's fair. Well, good talk, man. That's all we have for this week. Thanks as always for listening. For sharing our love for baseball and the Pirates. It's the real ones left, Jake. It's the real ones. Everybody else is tuning out.
Yeah.
Here's hoping this offseason is very exciting for us this year and not a letdown.
Yeah.
Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!